So let's talk about internet psychology. Tell us about it, and how does it help us as business owners?
Well, see, I'm fascinated by the way people behave anyway, but I think the thing that's really interesting about the way people behave online is that we don't have much time to engage with them. As businesses, somebody will land on a business website. You've got no way of saying hello to them, how are you, asking them what they're interested in, all the kind of things that you would do in normal business. So in normal face-to-face business, if you're a retailer, for instance, you're trained in having empathy with the person coming into the shop, asking them questions, steering them in the right direction, listening to them to work out what it is they're interested in. And you may spend a good 4 or 5 minutes trying to understand the customer and then be able to point them in the right direction. And if you're in business to business, people would normally, make a phone call, make an appointment, go and visit people, and you'd ask lots of questions and you'd work out what they were interested in. On the internet, we haven't got any of that. What happens is somebody lands on your website and in 0.56 of a second, because we know this because people have been shoved in brain scanners to work it out, wow. In 0.56 of a second, they have made their mind up in that time whether they're going to stay on your website or whether they're going to go from your website. So we haven't got all of that traditional engagement and listening and talking and questioning in order to point people in the right direction, which means our website has to point people in exactly the right direction in less than a second.
Wow. So how do we
That's
do
fascinating.
that?
Well, yeah, how do we do that? I think the one thing is that if we think about the websites that are really, really successful, there are some businesses online that are fantastically successful. People like Amazon, people like Google, like Facebook, all these big brands. When you really, look at what they do, they actually only do one thing. They have a very simple one thing they do. So Google, you go onto Google, you can only search. That's it. If you want to do buying books or CDs or any other products, that's all you can do at Amazon. You just buy stuff. At Facebook, all you do is chat to your friends. At LinkedIn, all you do is connect with your business colleagues. Each of these really successful sites have one thing in common, which is they have a single function. Google, of course, own YouTube and Gmail and Google Maps and all these other services that many of us will use, but they don't cram them all into one website. They separate them out into separate websites. One website, one function. Sure. And that's what the successful websites tell us, because we can get that in half a second. When you land on Amazon, if you've never seen Amazon before in your life and you land on it, you immediately know this is a shop. So you know you're going to buy stuff. When you land on Google, you immediately know you're going to search for something. When you land on Gmail, you immediately know you're going to send emails. So it gets into our brains within half a second. And the problem with many business websites is that they have got 20, 30 different functions all lumped in together. And so I think the one thing to answer your question really is, how do we do that? How do we engage people in that half a second? We work out what our separate business functions are, and then we have separate websites to deliver each of those separate functions.
Okay. So we're trying to be too much or too many things to too many people. Is that the key?
It is, yeah. And in the real world, that's possible, because if you offer a business service and you're talking to another business, let's imagine you're a firm of accountants, and you might offer advice on tax, you might offer advice on future financial planning, you might offer advice on business startups. There are lots of different services that an accountancy practice will offer. But if you put them all into one website, and I'm a business startup, and you're actually talking about tax planning for my employees on that web page, my immediate thought is that website is not for me.
Yeah.
So if that practice of accountants has one website for startups, one website for tax planning, one website for pension arrangements or whatever else it is that they're offering advice in, then when the person who's looking for startup advice or tax planning advice or pension advice, when they land on that that website, immediately they know that this is the right site for them.
Sure.
So what we need to do is divide our offerings up so that it's obvious within that first half a second.
It speaks their language. So when a user's surfing the web, I mean, like you just said, I mean, okay, if we're an accountant and, you know, in our world we do accounting, we do financial planning, we do, you know, tax returns and all that kind of thing. And, you know, of course, we want to say that to everybody because we don't know who's looking on our website. We're just thinking, hey, we've got a visitor. Let's tell them everything we do just in case we might finally hit something. What we need to be doing, or what you're saying we need to be doing, is sort of, well, okay, find the people who are looking for a tax return, speak their language and say, if you want a tax return, this is your site. Find the people that want financial planning, saying, hey, are you here for financial planning? Because then they're going to be like, yes, I am. How did you know? You know, it's speaking my language, which makes a lot of sense, but most people aren't doing it, are they?
No, most businesses will say, you know, here's our website, this is us, and it's everything we do, and you find it yourself. But actually, that's what, if I'm old enough to remember the olden days, and in the in the olden days before the internet, if you were, you know, if we continue this accountancy example, you would maybe have a new client that you were going to see, and you would take along various pieces of marketing collateral, some leaflets, some brochures, some you know, handout sheets and things. But what you would do beforehand is you'd have a phone call with them and you'd work out which leaflets were relevant to them. And if you were a big corporate, you'd have maybe a big glossy brochure. But what you would do is you'd hand over that brochure to your client and say, you know, that here's everything about our company, but the interesting stuff for you is on page 16 or whatever. Okay. So we would have sorted it out in advance for that client, saving them the bother of, you know, giving them 20 leaflets and them sorting it out for themselves. We would sort it out for them. But what we do online is bung all of that information and then expect the customer to sort it out. We never used to do that in the olden days. We used to sort it out for them.
So why is that? I mean, you know, in the old days, like you say, it's kind of, we had the opportunity to get to know our customers. We had the opportunity to get in front of them and actually ask the question, well, what can I do for you? What services do you particularly want? Okay, so let's go through the book. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. This is for you. Now, obviously, when we're on the internet, we can't do that because we don't know who's looking at our site. So what's the answer? How do we do it?
Well, there are several bits of technology we can use. Social media is a really great bit of technology because we can know in advance who these people are. So if we start our kind of web presence using social media, we can work out who these people are in advance because we can engage with them on social media, and then we can point those individual groups of people to specific websites or landing pages on our website. So we're pre-qualifying these people using social media. That's one way that we could do that. The second way that you can do that is to use technologies like the little chat boxes. So you've got little chat boxes that pop up usually in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Now sometimes you will not be able to do this yourself, so you can source this to various agencies who you can give background and scripts and so on to, and they can just pop up and say, hello, do you need any help? How are you? How can I help you? In the same way as, you know, you might be approached as you walk into a store where, you know, one of the sales assistants would just say, you know, can I help you? And it's that kind of, you can ask a few questions to begin with to steer people through. So there's a couple of practical things you can do. The other thing, of course, is to use a combination of keyword research and analytics to tell you what people are really interested in, and when they're interested in something, where they go and what they do. So you can spot the pathways in your website, which means then when you've worked out what, you know, journeys people are taking, you can then enhance those journeys by making them better and more appropriate to those kind of people. So it's kind of bits of testing, bits of getting people to your website using social media and getting them to specific sites by pre-qualifying them. So there's a few bits and things you can do. But I think what a lot of people do with social media is go, well, here's my website, and I'll just go and promote the website using social media. I'd use it the other way around.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, that's probably a discussion for another time as well. I would imagine that people are generally across the board not using social media anywhere near its potential or what they could be doing. Because
Absolutely.
That's just, like you said, I think it's a lot of businesses that I work with or I've seen, they just tend to, hey, social media, let's yell at everybody, let's get our message out to the masses and hope for the best. Well, why do you think, business owners take this kind of approach? And with the business owners that you've worked with, what kind of percentages of people are actually doing it correctly?
I would think the percentage doing it correctly is quite low, actually. And when I talk to businesses and ask them why they're not taking this approach of providing something that's highly specific and that people can get in half a second, the real issue is a management issue. If you think that, if you're in any kind of business and your sales staff, or you, if it's your business, would normally engage with a potential customer and talk to them and so on, that might take you anything from 5 to 15 minutes to work out what to talk to them about and deliver to them and where you could offer them a service. And so that was easy to do. But if you're going to have to manage now, let's say your business has 10 separate functions, now what you've got to do is manage 10 separate websites. And if you've got to manage 10 separate websites, that begins to take up much more time than the 15 minutes would have taken to talk to a customer. And so the real issue that businesses have is that it's a management issue. It's much easier to manage one website than it is to manage a presence on the internet that's got, 10, 20, 30. If you're a big company, you may need 100 different websites. That becomes a whole big management issue that really puts people off.
But surely, I mean, most business owners are in business to make money and to be profitable, and yet, despite of all that, or in spite of all that, they're basically sabotaging their success because they've been lazy, for want of a better word.
Yeah, it's partly laziness, but it's also partly they get blinded by data that's irrelevant. So, for instance, business is about profit, but there are an awful lot of business people who get, blinded by the bright lights of turnover, and so they're looking for turnover, and there's businesses in the UK have gone bust recently. They're turning over £100 million and losing money.
Wow.
And yet other people are going, well, I can turn over £10 million and make £4 million. Yeah. That's better than turning over £100 million and making nothing.
Sure.
So business leaders get kind of attracted by the dizzy bright lights of big numbers. So they get attracted by the bright lights of millions of website visitors. Yes. They get attracted by, hundreds of thousands of likes on Facebook. How many Twitter followers have you got? And this all generates this competitive spirit. And so if your business has got, 100,000 likes on Facebook and you've got one website that gets 1 million hits, that's a measure of success and people can relate to that. Yeah. But if you've got 100 websites which now only get 100 likes, you think I'm not doing so well. The problem is you're looking at the wrong numbers. What we should be looking at is, are those 100 websites, as you rightly pointed out, are they generating profit?
Yes.
And often people look at the wrong numbers, and so they end up doing the wrong thing.
Sure.
Because they're attracted by those big bright lights of those big fancy numbers. And so they really should focus on the profit, which means they should then focus on maybe working out how they manage 10 different websites.
Sure. And that makes perfect sense. I guess a lot of business owners and business managers do get caught up in the numbers. Like you say, I mean, if I had one website that was getting 10,000 visitors a week, as opposed to 10,000 websites that only got one visitor, I mean, the numbers are the same. But to me, I'd much rather manage one website with the big numbers.
Yep.
But the dollars in the bank at the end of the day don't lie, do they?
No.
Sorry, go.
Similar to your example, somebody was telling me a couple of years ago, I was talking to this guy he only needed 2 customers really And the two customers he needed, and he knew, that exactly the kind of people he needed to buy from him, were going to spend with his business about £250,000 each. Okay. So this is a £500,000 business that's only going to work with two customers. And what he was trying to do was get more website traffic. And I said, but...
Okay, looks like it's okay. So, Graham, that sounds awesome. With the businesses that you've worked with over the years, and you've probably worked with heaps of them, have you got some examples or one or two examples you can share with us that, like a business who kind of had the one website, bring lots of people and try and be everything to everybody approach, where you've taken them and split them into more niche type of sites, and how they've got the results from that?
I think that... some of the examples like that are amongst the massive companies, as I say, Google and those people who clearly do this. And if you look at Amazon, 40% of Amazon's income comes not from the Amazon website, but from associate websites who are usually specialist websites on things like, books for, people who are interested in, flying, books for pilots or something like that. So it's a niche little bookshop. And 40% of Amazon's incomes comes from those kind of places, showing that, the narrower the niche, the better.
Sure.
But in terms of the companies that I've worked with, I've worked with some, for example, high street banks. And, when they first started, they were trying to put everything into one website. And you find that now that many of those have started to break down their website into specific functions. So, there'll be a website just for online banking, a website just for people who want to save money, and they, of course they'll interlink all these websites so that you don't have to keep going off to different places if you want to do different kinds of things. But they're certainly doing, many more of the right things now online than they were a few years ago. So the banks are, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are doing the right things. But the other thing that I think is also important in all of this is the content that you put on these different websites. And so I work with a client who's a business-to-business client. They specialize in monitoring equipment for water, basically, so that they can measure whether an impending flood is likely to happen. So that's important for farmers and all these, and they can collect data and let if there's going to be some kind of problem. Now, you would think that a website like that would be fairly straightforward. Here's a simple website with a product that says, buy this if you want to monitor the water levels in your area. But of course, it's a technical piece of technology. They're going to talk in the language that if a farmer needs to monitor some water on his land, they're not going to talk in farming language. And so what I got them to do was to forget the technology, but to start writing blogs about, everything associated, all the results of the kinds of things they were doing. What they saw was that prior to blogging, the number of sales they were getting via the website was virtually zero. There was hardly anything happening. It was there, and they were using other sales techniques to get people to their websites. Their website visitors were people who already knew about them, who were just checking them out, having probably met, one of their sales staff at some event. Yeah. With the blog now, they're now getting about 20% of their sales directly through the internet. Yeah. Now, they were getting none of them without the right content, because what we did was focus the content right down into the kind of things that those people who use their the end user, the people who they might not actually even be selling to, writing material for them that makes them want to have this product on their farm.
Yep, okay. And then they become seen as the expert in their market.
Absolutely.
They're educating clients. It makes logical sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, quite.
Awesome. Graham, I mean, I know that we could talk about this all day and all night, and it's awesome. And obviously, you've got years and years of this behind you. So, you know, and the thing is, I've been to your website a few times. I was there earlier today. You've got a ton of stuff on there. It's an awesome website. Yep. There's a ton of. In fact, I downloaded some stuff today as well. You've got the complete blogging system. I mean, this is free stuff that you're giving away. I downloaded this and printed it out. You've got, what is that Excel spreadsheet? For the blogging, working out the
blogging planning tool.
The planning tool. I downloaded that. That's awesome because, I mean, you know, normally you wake up one day and think, oh, what am I going to blog about? Oh, I'll leave it. I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. You know, and it forces you to focus. And you're giving that away on your website as well. So, where can people go to find all this stuff?
Just go to grahamjones.co.uk.
grahamjones.co.uk, and I'll put a link down at the bottom of this video as well. And I strongly suggest that people go there and have a look. You've got a bunch of stuff to give away. You're very big on social media, on teaching people how to use social media correctly from a human perspective, obviously, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all human. We're all driven by emotional triggers, and this is, you know, something that I'm excited about as well. You know, and like you said, when one person goes to a website, it's just one person looking for one thing to fulfill an emotional need, want or desire or whatever it is. And so the better we can understand that and utilize that and use that in our online marketing, the better off we're going to be and the more profit we're going to make, obviously. So, Graham, look, it's been awesome having you here today, and I really appreciate your time. And I think you've got some great insights to bring to the internet marketing community. I strongly encourage they go to your website, and then obviously if they want to work one-on-one with you to take their business to the next level, then obviously that's a service. Just quickly, because we're running out of time, just give us a bit of a breakdown of some of the services that you do offer and where people can go from here.
So some of the things I can do, for instance, is content planning. So helping people develop an entire content strategy for their website or for their blog. So an example of that was with a firm of brokers recently. Gave them an entire plan for the whole of the next 6 months, so that every member of staff knows exactly when they've got to write something or produce something for the web, what they've got to do, which day they've got to do it. So an entire strategy, which means they no longer have to think about, you know, sit there facing a blank screen thinking, what do I do? So I can produce entire kind of production content planning for people, which is a big gap. I think people realize that content is good for them, but they kind of scratch their heads and don't know how to plan it. So producing a plan or producing an entire strategy for a business, if it's not, you know, if they've already got content and they want to think about an entire strategy for how they're going to develop the internet for their business and really connect with their customers, then, you know, that's a stage on from that. Awesome.
And I know you've got a newsletter as well, which is free, which is great. Yep. One of the things that I like about your site, you're not selling anything to anybody. You're not pushing anything on your site, which is great. So I strongly recommend and encourage. You know, you've got some great resources on your site for people to go and have a look. Sign up for the free newsletter, and then if they need anything further from you, then they can get in touch with you. Your number's on the site, the number's on the newsletter. Graham, it's been awesome having you on the Web Marketing Show. I really appreciate your time, and we'll have to get you back on again to talk about social media, because that's a hot topic too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great. Thanks again, Graham.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
bye.